Hey, happy almost start to the spring. Jim Ventura here, professional astrologer, navigational consultant. Welcome to my channel and a new video. Uh, like, subscribe if you like the content and want to hear more. I do a video about every month or so. Okay, so here's what I want to talk about. Something big that I think is really, really important. Depending on where you live, we've come out of a very, very notably long winter. I know in Arizona it started getting cold by Arizona standards, Phoenix standards, in mid October. So we're just finally getting the warmer temperatures. So we had almost a 5-month winter. I know in other areas they got pillaged even more, of course, but for Arizona, this is pretty much a very notable winter. Good amount of rain and snow. So one thing I love to explain to people that I think is really important is we've been all kind of trained in Western society to look at weather as being outside of us versus us being part of that. Ultimately, that's even with astrology and other things. You know, we're part of the solar system and the universe, and its movements reflect our own. Same dynamic with weather. So when you have a lot of wind and a lot of extreme wind, which was definitely the case, I was in Vegas about a month ago, and it was cold and really windy, and I don't really have the clothes for cold weather because I've been in Phoenix for 30 years, so gloves and hats and scarves not my thing. I ended up with walking pneumonia. Deeper issues behind that, but thankfully healed that with natural remedies in 2 weeks. But a big thing that really had hit me was how windy it was. And that's it. I've really noticed a lot of wind. Typically anyway, around this time of year, usually in February, March, even April, certainly in the Southwest, you have what are called the Santa Ana winds. In the North, they call those the Chinook winds, by the way. So different cultures and Indians had different terminology for it. So let's talk about that for a minute and how that affects us personally. Again, not being separate from the weather, understanding that it's not so much that weather happens to us, that we are part of it. So a simple way of looking at that is, when there's extreme weather, it's part of nature's way of balancing, of course. But also there can be extreme anger and emotions and feelings in an area, which also needs to be cleansed through intense weather. So think more in those terms. But wind itself is interesting because in Lakota teachings, they refer to wind as wind was designed for a lot of reasons, but part of it is to remind us that change is inherent, that we're blown off course from time to time to push us to not stay stagnant and know when to change. Okay, so wind, nice breeze, that's great, very refreshing, mild changes to combat our personal stubbornness. Then we have, again, often in the later part of the winter, sometimes early part of spring, you have a lot of intense winds. Again, we typically call them the Santa Ana winds. And the concept in Lakota teachings and some of the others is that those winds don't necessarily come from just north, southeast, and west. They come from the points in between, northeast, southeast, southwest. So in a similar analogy to astrology, hard angles in astrology represent challenge and growth and things that ultimately push us. So think of it the same way as when the winds are strong. It's almost like nature is kind of telling us not only do we need to make change, but we need to look at self-protection change. And let me tell you what I mean by that. Often there are issues and themes that have gone on in our life for a long time, or repeated patterns that are causing us stress and anxiety that will keep resurfacing from time to time. In astrology, we kind of refer to that as energy connected with Pluto, by the way. But the key is this: when those intense winds are coming, it's kind of nature's way and our higher self's way of reminding us we may need to remove ourselves from a circumstance or a situation. Here's a good image from those cards. You see kind of the man on the horse dealing with intense, brutal winds. That can be the feeling of it sometimes in the extreme when you're in it in a physical way, but also emotionally and psychologically. So here's a couple of ways of looking at that so you can heal and move forward. One, when you have intense issues and problems and things continue to surface, it may be that we have to protect ourselves and remove ourselves from people, things, circumstances, situations, or even aspects of ourselves that are no longer beneficial and healthy and that are causing us pain and discomfort. That's not always easy. Sometimes we have loyalty to people, circumstances, and even like, loyalty to things that sometimes even might be bad for us. I've had this issue. A lot of people with strong earth energy or fixed elements in an astrology chart can have this issue of sometimes inappropriate loyalty. Or sometimes it's just a fear of change itself. The devil But ultimately, what these wins or reminder are, if you're willing to kind of listen, it's sort of a way for your higher self to communicate to you that you need to protect yourself, make certain changes that will inevitably bring you to a place of more harmony and peace. So, and a good thing to remember along the way, and this is really important, probably the harder thing for some of us to get, the cruelty from a friend or a job or a family member or a lover or a partner that we may encounter, again, sometimes patterned emotionally. It's important, again, to know when to remove yourself to move forward, but also to not take it personally. I know that sounds weird, but remember, the people we encounter have their own challenges and issues and themes. And sometimes when they hurt us, it's not so much that they were trying to hurt us, but they're so wounded that being in their path ends up hurting us. So it's kind of that fine line to not so much take it personally. But always know that when we're pushed to make change, for the most part, it's often beneficial. So think of it this way. Here's a good kind of meditation for this energy when it surfaces around us in our life. I seek and find within change the opportunity to be more fully myself. So when we stop looking at it as a negative, and trust me, when you're going through difficulty, it can obviously feel incredibly negative, just as those winds are, when they're really harsh and loud and yelling at us almost. Being more fully ourself means that we are, getting rid of attributes or things that are just not healthy and good for us anymore, that we may have outgrown. And a big part of that is in terms of self-protection, if you think of it that way. If we're in an evolutionary stage of healing, outgrowing, allowing people and things to hurt us and abuse us, knowing how to step away from it, not by being mad at them as much as knowing that, in almost kind of a weird way, the badness of what was done can be a motivator for us to take more value in our value and how important we are. I went through, as a lot of people did during the COVID times, a lot of friendship changes and losses in family. I'm not talking so much about people physically dying. I'm talking about the extremes of people cutting me out of their life or being angry at my perception or how I handled things. And that was rough. And I think a lot of my clients, a lot of people I've talked to have gone through similar things. So know that when we encounter these wins, we can learn how to listen to them, not resist it so much. I know that whatever changes we are pushed to make, hey man, often when the smoke clears, we're going to be like, oh my God, I'm happier, I'm more fulfilled, I got that out of my life, I got out of that job, that situation, I'm not letting people bug me or get under my skin, and I'm taking care of me. And when you take care of me, yourself, you're happier, and the people around you inevitably will be happier because you're showing them a good path to take as well. So no running from the wind, although physically sometimes you have to. But anyway, so that's my discussion of the energy of the Santa Anas. In Lakota, they call it Tab, and understanding that wind. So till next time, like and subscribe if you like the videos, and information about all my services can be found at jimventura.com, and subscribe to my every other month newsletter. You get information about that at my website as well too. All right, happy start to spring. Finally, it's been really, really cold. I'm happy.